Hello, my fellow chatterers, and hopefully stat lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious or you got a bit lost. I'm Chatty, and today I'm going to be chatting away madly about my November stats. So I'm going to be looking at all the books I've read over November and talking about stats. So if that sounds fun, you're in the right place. If it doesn't, I suggest you go elsewhere. Or stay, you may change your mind, who knows. So to start off with, I am going to be going through my TBR and to see whether or not I've actually completed it this month and get a reward, or if I have once again failed and get a punishment. I am going to be tweaking it for January and how I do things in the future, just to give myself a better management of it, shall we say. But I'm going to go through that when I start doing my future goals and things further on in the month or in January. Not sure when I'm going to be doing it. So let's start off with the gimmick. I don't edit on here, I just do one shots. So cheers everyone. So here are all the books that were on my TBR. So I had a punishment from not completing in September. So my punishment was that I had to go through my social media, and I did YouTube. And the first person that popped up on my subscription, I had to watch their most recent video and read the first book that was featured in that video. And that was KG Books, and that was Treacle Walker. And I read Treacle Walker. This is a placeholder because it's back at the library. The next one, I had a 30-second prompt, which was a new series, and I chose Amari and the Night Brothers. And I've read that one. I then had a genre or age, and it gave me the genre mystery, and I read the second book in the Adventures on Trains, Kidnap on the California Comet. And I've read that one. I then had 30-second prompt again, and this was to read an author, a recent author that you want more from. And I started reading the Ember and the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir, so I wanted to read more Sabaa Tahir. I filmed my video early and I thought I would have been on the third book. I was intending to try and squeeze the second book into that October reading month. But as people who I was buddy reading with were not on that book, I left it. So I swapped the third book with the second. So I read the second book, Torch Against the Night, instead of Reaper at the Gates. That is still valid. So I have read that one too. Then I had a Lucky Ladder prompt, which was continue a series you're reading, and I continued the Cogheart series. I'm doing the Cog Along with Vidania from Vidania Silverscribe, and the third book was Skycircus, and I read that one. I then got another Lucky Ladder and got to choose a book with a beautiful cover, and I went for House of Shells, and I read it. And the final one was A Worrying Worm. I had to read a book with 5 words in the title, and I got A Street Cat Named Bob. And I read that one too. That means I have read all the books I said I was going to read, which means, finally, I get a reward! Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay. Not as many to choose from as the punishments, because clearly people enjoy making punishments for me more than they do rewards. So if anyone's got any nice bookish rewards that I can then use to take forward into the TBR game, that would be great. So we are looking at probably when I do this again, I'm either going to do it in January, I might roll it onto February, depending kind of how it works. So I'm going to put them in here, give it a little shake. I've totally forgotten what they all are, and let's pick one out. And it is it says, replace any book with a childhood favourite or a book you are keen to reread. And that was from Melly and Bridget, both on the Shelf Space Discord. So thank you, Melly and Bridget. So it's another really fun one where I can just replace one of my books, either with a childhood favourite or a book I'm keen to reread. Okay. We'll see where I'll put that one in. I do a lot of rereading anyway, and I'm really wanting to do the books you read what you own challenge. And I don't know, well, I suppose it would count, But the problem is I've already got, try not to make plans for future, but plans are already kind of forming. And reading one of my childhood favourites, oh actually no, this could work, because there is a series I'm rereading and it's middle grade, so that could fit in. So yes, we will see how I use that in the future, but that's my reward. I get to swap out a book for one that I feel more like reading, so that is a great prompt. Okay, we have done that. I'm now gonna add all the books in that I read, because I've got some more down here, and I'll start going through the stats. So in total, I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 books over the month of November, which does sound impressive. I tend to read around about 8 to 10 has recently been my average in varying sizes. There are a lot of short books on this month, which I think is why I've read more than usual. So we're going to start off with those sizes. I like to compare my book sizes to animals. So I have read 6 mouse-sized books, which is anything between 151 to 300 pages. So I have read 6 mouse-sized books. So they are Treacle Walker, of which I have this placeholder, by I've totally forgotten who wrote that. I'm really sorry. All the book details, sorry, I'm wrestling these books. They're like all slipping away from me. So let's just put them down. Professional. In my description box, I really should say this at the beginning of the video, but I always forget. In the description box, I will link all of the books that I talk about in the stats, so you can click on them and go straight to the Storygraph website, where you'll find a synopsis about what the book is, information on trigger warnings, on what kind of moods it evokes, people's reviews, so you can get an idea. If any of these books sound interesting to you, you can get a better idea of what they're about, because I'm not going to be sort of reviewing them. I'm literally just talking about stats. If you want to know my thoughts and opinions on these videos on these books, I will link my November wrap-up videos so you can see them. It is quite late at night. I have been trying to film this video for about 2 days. We're doing this. We're going to power through. Okay, so yes, there are 6 mouse-sized books. Treacle Walker by, check description to find author, Alan, someone beginning with G. I'm very sorry. They're a Booker nominee. And Mistborn, The Secret History, which is a novella by Brandon Sanderson in the Mistborn series. Both of these are nearly ant size. They are only just over 151 pages. They're both around sort of 160s, 170s. And then we have Twiggy, Thistle and the Lost Guardians by Chris Riddell. And that is quite comfortably at 200. A Street Cat Named Bob by James Bowen. And then these two were kind of, they could have moved into goat territory. They were very close to 300 pages. And that is The House of Shells by Efua Traore. I always really struggle to pronounce her last name, sorry. And Kidnap on the California Comet by M.G. Leonard and Sam Sedgman. I then read one goat-sized book, and that is a book which is between 300 to 400 pages, and that is Amari and the Night Brothers. I read 3 cow-sized books. That is Skycircus by Peter Bunzel, The Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson, and A Torch Against the Night by Saba Tahir. So all of these in the cow-sized books are 401 to 500 pages. And finally, one elephant book, which is The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson, and this was just in the elephant category. It was just over 500 pages. Elephant books are 500 to 700 pages. Ta-da! I tend to read quite a lot of sort of bigger books, and there usually might be a couple of elephants in kind of what I'm reading, and my only elephant only just made it on being an elephant. So I think again that has added to why I've read more books this month than normal, because it hasn't felt too much. Or like I've been trying. There's a book I just abandoned and never got in here, but anyway, we are getting distracted from the point. Now I'm going to look at the age ranges of what I have been reading. So I have read 5 middle grades this month, which makes me really, really happy because I want to be reading more middle grade. So these are, again, here we go, 5 middle grades. Chaos. Skycircus, Amari and the Night Brothers, Kidnap on the California Comet, The House of Shells, and Twiggy, Thistle and the Lost Guardians. I have read 1 YA, which if these books will behave, I will be able to show you. Stay still. Oh. Wonderful. 1 YA, which is A Torch Against the Night, and 5 adult. A Street Cat Named Bob, Treacle Walker, and then 3 books from Mistborn, which is The Bands of Mourning, The Secret Mistborn History, and The Lost Metal. So I'm now going to look at how I'm going with my series. So in terms of this month, I did pretty well because I finished a series. Whoop, whoop, whoop. So I am now all caught up with the Mistborn series. I have now thoroughly read all of Mistborn Era 2. This is the last book. It's finished. There is no more Era 2. At some point, I'm sure we will find Era 3 coming at us from somewhere. But for now, Mistborn, I'm all caught up with. It's done. It's finished. I've read it. It's exciting. I have made progress with 3 series, which are Kidnap on the California Comet, which is the 2nd book in the Adventures on Trains, Skycircus, which is the 3rd book in the Cogheart series, and A Torch Against the Night, which is the 2nd book in the Ember and the Ashes series. I have started a series, but I'm not mad at myself because I've been meaning to read it for ages, and that is Amari and the Night Brothers, and I'm very excited to have started this series. I have the next book under my bed that I need to earn, and then when I read that, I'll be all caught up. So that's exciting. And I am up to date with the series as well. I have no idea how many books are going to be in the Cloud Horse Chronicles, but I read The Lost Guardians last year, I think, and this is the 2nd book, which has only recently come out, Twiggy, Thistle and the Lost Guardians. So I'm either up to date or it's a duology and I finished it. I don't know. I might know in a few years. If I don't see another book in a few years, then I will declare it finished. Otherwise, I'm up to date. Next, I'm going to look at genre. And as always, I like to complicate things. So I'm going to talk about aspects of genre as well as full on, this is the genre I feel it works in. So I have read a memoir, which is A Street Cat Named Bob. I have read a literary fiction. I usually would then say it's got aspects of this or this in it when it's literary fiction. Like you can have literary fiction which is historical, blah, blah, blah. This is surrealism, I suppose, Treacle Walker. So it just seemed to fit nicely into literary fiction because I can just put it there in its little, I don't know what you are zone. I read 1 mystery, which was The Adventures on Trains. And I read 2 books, which are magical realism, which are Skycircus and The House of Shells. Both have also different aspects with them. I think with magical realism, it's sometimes that you don't quite know where to place it. So Skycircus often will come under the fantasy genre in the middle grade age range. But although it's a kind of fantastical adventure, I definitely class it more as magical realism because the magic in it is just that it is based in, it can also fit into historical because it's based in the 1800s, but it's in kind of like an alternative end of the 1800s, where they have mechanicals. So they have mechanical engines and engineers, and they have a lot of robots but made of clockwork and cogs. And in this one they start to look at hybrids, which are humans that have mechanical aspects to them, and these are kind of like fused onto them and are part of them. So it kind of has that kind of magical realism element rather than full out fantasy, is kind of where I put this one. And the House of Shells could also fit into contemporary. It's set in modern day Nigeria, but it deals with like Nigerian folklore, and the folklore is real in this book, which is why I feel it is magical realism. You can also have it as kind of folklore, fairy tale, traditional tale, and like I said, also contemporary as well, but it sits strongly in the magical realism for me. And then I read 6 fantasy books, which are Twiggy, Thistle and the Lost Guardians, Amari and the Night Brothers, Torch Against the Night, and Bands of Mourning, Secret Mistborn History and the Lost Metal. I would argue that Bands of Mourning and the Lost Metal also have sci-fi elements to them as well, so you can also count that one as kind of a mix of genres. But generally, if I'm putting them into a category, I would put them in fantasy. So that is 5 different genres, I think: memoir, literary fiction, mystery, magical realism and fantasy. Yeah, 5 genres that I'm going to officially class it as. In terms of format, I read 9 novels, 1 novella, which was the Secret Mistborn History, and 1 audiobook. I listened to most of Kidnap on the California Comet on an audio. I really enjoyed it. I did read some of it physically as well, but it was mainly on audio, so that's why I'm counting it as that one. Treacle Walker is shorter than the novella The Secret Mistborn History, but I don't know if it's classed as a novella or not. So if you have any thoughts of whether Treacle Walker is a novel or a novella, or what exactly the category of a novella is, I'd love to know. Please do tell me, enlighten me. And in terms of where these books come from, I have read 2 borrowed books. A Street Cat Named Bob I have borrowed from my friend Lenka and can finally return to her, and Bands of Mourning I borrowed from my brother Matty. Oop, come on, get in. 4 of the books are mine, so that's Skycircus, Amari and the Night Brothers, A Torch Against the Night and Mistborn the Secret History. And then these 5 are library books. More book collapsing chaos. So Kidnap on the California Comet, The House of Shells, Twiggy, Thistle and the Lost Guardians, Treacle Walker and the Lost Metal I all borrowed from the library. Kind of detrimental to reading what you own when you start getting things out the library, but I feel like I've gone a bit crazy with that. It's almost like it's encouraged me to go to the library more. Right, next category. And 9 of these are new reads. I have done 2 rereads, which was The Secret Mistborn History and The Bands of Mourning, because I wanted to reread that series ready for The Lost Metal. In terms of looking at authors, sadly again no non-binary authors or any authors under the trans umbrella. But this month is very different. I usually read predominantly female authors. This has been a very male-heavy author month. And kind of reflecting on, does this month feel very different? It doesn't really. It doesn't. I've enjoyed books. I enjoyed my books last month. I enjoyed them this month. It doesn't really make a difference. It's just interesting, I suppose. So 9 of these books are written by male authors. And 3... Is that correct? Yes. 9 are written, and then 3 are written by females, because Kidnap on the California Comet was written by both a male and a female author. So M.G. Leonard is female and Sam Sedgman is male. And then I have The House of Shells and A Torch Against the Night by female authors, and the rest are all male authors this month. In terms of me reading more global majority authors, not that great this month, only 3. We have A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir, we have The House of Shells by Ifu Torore, and we have Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. So that means I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Could have done the maths, but I didn't. 8 books by other authors. So that's not great when I'm wanting to read more global majority. I think obviously one of the factors is that I read 3 from a series and it just happened to be written by a white male. And yeah, and the other ones are what they are. I think again I'm reading a lot of series where they're not written by global majority authors. Well, that's what I wanted to say. There's a reason I haven't finished and wrapped this one up yet. So I use the term global majority to refer to what most people call BIPOC authors, which is Black, Indigenous or people of colour. I got the term from Loud Black Girls, which is a book that I got from the library, but I really want to own. So fingers crossed I can at some point get that book on my shelves. And I really need to get out the essay and find out exactly which of those many authors it was that used that phrase that I have been using, so I can give her the full credit. But amazingly, at work, I work in the NHS, and they said we're no longer using ethnic minority, they are using the term global majority, and I was so excited. I was like, yes, well done books. So yeah, that pleased me a bit, but obviously my reading did not reflect that this month, but I will keep reflecting on it. So one of the reasons I really enjoy doing stats and kind of reviewing and reflecting on what I'm reading is because I like to think about the books I'm reading, if I'm enjoying them, if I'm having fun, if I'm feeling like I'm in a reading stupor, and why that might be. I do tend to read a lot of fantasy because it's my favourite genre, but I also do like to kind of mix in other things as well. I also like to read across the ages. I am particularly wanting to read a lot more middle grade at the moment, just because it's an age range that I really enjoy and get a lot from. So that is one of the things I'm wanting to read because I love it, but I realised I hadn't actually been reading as much of it. So this was a great month for that. I'm also wanting to be more kind of reflective on what books I'm accessing, and is it to do with me and what I'm kind of, am I limiting myself in what I go for, or is it to do with what we have available, what publishers are pushing towards us, which is why I really like to be kind of aware of, am I reading non-binary and trans authors, because obviously they don't get as much the doors aren't open enough for them, like they kind of have to force their way through it a bit more. Same for global majority authors, so I do have that kind of awareness. And in certain genres as well, female authors, like there are fields where female authors are more predominant and others where they are less so, and that does tend to be kind of in the books that I tend to prefer reading. In fantasy, it does tend to be if you walk into like a more regular, smaller bookshop, like I have recently gone into ones and there were so many female authors writing fantasy at the moment, but the only ones that were on those shelves was Robin Hobb, hooray for Robin Hobb, and Sarah J Maas. Those are the only 2 female authors on those shelves. You know, there was no R.F. Kuang, there was no S.A. Chakraborty, there was it was just very kind of limited in what we were being shown. So that's why I really like to be reflective and kind of see what I am reading. So I am now going to look at what usually is the hardest part of this video, which is what was my least favourite book and what was my favourite book. But actually this month I found it really easy, to the point that I've only got one for both choices and there's no dilemma. So let me share. My least favourite book is. If you have been looking at my wrap-ups, I'd love for you to guess what you think it is. What do you think my favourite is, and what do you think my least favourite is? Write in the comments now. Write in the comments now before I tell you, and see if you get it right. I'd love to know. So my least favourite is, placeholder here, Treacle Walker. We were just not compatible as a reader and a book concept. It just was not going to work at all. It was not my thing. It was, surrealism is not for me. I don't know if you were supposed to understand it, but I didn't understand what was going on, and I couldn't quite connect with the characters. I just felt at one side of it, kind of looking at it, confused. So we were just not friends, unfortunately. So that was just a book that wasn't working for me. I didn't think the writing was bad. I didn't think, like, it just was very clear that it wasn't for me. Like, the story kind of as a concept seemed to work. Like, there was a clear, here is the beginning, here's some stuff that's sorted, and here is the end. Like, I could see its flow, but I just didn't enjoy it. So that's my least favourite book of the month. My favourite, now I don't put rereads in. I only choose books that I haven't read before, because I think when you look at rereads, they are going to feel more special to you because you've read it before, you've wanted to relook at it again. Sometimes maybe it won't be as joyous, but generally I feel you get to just appreciate the story more and pick up all the bits you've missed, and it just gives you an extra layer of story, so therefore it will be like higher in your love. But yeah, my favourite book of the month is Amari and the Night Brothers. This is my favourite. I loved it. I loved it so much. And she had a tough month. There were other books in there that were really good. There were books that I've really enjoyed. I found House of Shells really delightful. Writing that was really beautiful. And also she was competing with The Lost Metal, the final Mistborn book, and I really enjoyed it. I had a great time with that book. But there's just something about Amari that there's just a strong emotional pull to this book for me, and just, yes, love Amari. I love it. It's my favorite. It's my favorite, and I'm so happy because I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be my favorite, and it was. I had such high hopes for this, and I was really trying to pull them down so I didn't overhype it. But the hype is real, everyone. It was just, I just love it. Just love Amari. Happy, 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 happy. So there we go. Ta-da! November is done. We can fully focus on December and all the Christmassy, festive-y readiness going on. I feel a bit all over the place. I feel a bit like, I'm not sure how I feel. I'm not as chatty as I normally am on the social media. I'm that old, I call it the social media. Yeah, I'm not as chatty in Discord, and I do want to reply to all your comments, and I will get that. I'm just being a bit slow at the moment. There's just a lot. Just this time of month is just so busy. There's a lot of stuff that I'm trying to get organised with my family and try and make sure I'm prioritising. I'm definitely not watching as much YouTube as I want to be, as I normally am. So if I am quiet on your channels, it's not because I'm not interested. It's just because December's crazy. And also I do want to be reading. There's a lot of books I want to be reading, so I am prioritising getting videos out and reading and all my life stuff over being that chatty this month. So sorry if I'm quiet, but that is why, and I will get back on it in January and be annoying you all again. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Do feel free to have a little chat with me down below. As I've said, I always do enjoy, and I will try and get to those comments. If you haven't got anything you want to say, but you want to let me know, sorry, my hair is just being really weird. You want to let me know you are here, then I would love it if you could do a star emoji for Amari and the Night Brothers. So yes, give me some stars in the comment to let me know you were here and that you'd got to this point of the video. Let's see if I can wrap this up before it hits half an hour. That would be awesome. Happy reading, everyone. I hope you have had a great reading month and enjoy a lovely reading month in December. Bye.